Hi. Nigerians, mostly young Nigerians, trooped out in their numbers across states, across country, demanding an end to police brutality and extrajudicial killings in what we can describe as one of its kind protests ever to be held in Nigeria. It's been largely thrilling to see Nigerian youths, come out and demand accountability from elected leaders and public office holders. Now, the protest, which was tagged EndSARS, has since taken many twists and turns and has come to include other issues, which we will discuss on this month's edition of Development Issues. Joining me to have this conversation is a peace and conflict expert. His name is Peter Adeeko. He is also the founder of Solace Africa, a non-governmental organization that advocates for victims of violence, conflict, and peace. It's a pleasure to have you join us on this month's edition of Development Issues.
Thank you, Zainab. It's my pleasure.
And now, Mr. Adeeko, every time I, think of having conversations around peace with you, what comes to mind is this pointing gun analogy that you have. And you talk about how Nigeria is a trigger for development in Africa.
Yeah.
I would like you to run me through why you think that is the case.
Okay, thank you very much. In 2017, I was working on a development research.
Okay.
And while doing this, I was looking at it in the context of, the conflict, terrain in Nigeria. And I just, flip the Nigerian map a little. And no, African map, precisely.
Okay.
I flipped the African map a little, and I discovered that, I have something, an imagery of a pistol.
Okay.
And that was shocking to me. And trying to locate where Nigeria is on African map, I discovered that it was actually in a place of a trigger in a gun. So now, taking this back to the real life situation, looking at, the conflict, violent conflict terrain of Nigeria, looking at all the, economic problem that we are facing in Nigeria, looking at how Nigeria is also perceived, around the world, I discovered that if nothing is actually done, if something deliberate is not done, that might portend a serious danger, not only for Nigeria, not only for Africa, but also for the rest of the world.
And there's this popular narrative that if Nigeria can get it right, the rest of Africa would get it right. Even though some people say that it's just Nigerians being, overestimating their own importance.
Well, I think there is no gainsaying in that. I think that is purely truth. That if Nigeria can arise, the chances that other African countries would likely depend on Nigeria will arise. Let's look at it from this economic perspective. We have the population. I believe the population is a very great advantage, not only to Nigeria, but also to Africa. And I tell you, Africa is the next hotcake for the rest of the world. All of them are coming. So for me, I think that Nigeria being the in thing in Africa is not that cannot be overemphasized.
Okay, away from theories to what has been the reality of Nigeria in the past few weeks, in the past couple of weeks, as it relates to the EndSARS protests, where we saw millions of Nigerians in huge numbers, not millions maybe, but huge numbers, come out demanding an end to police brutality and extrajudicial killings. That was what triggered the protests. Looking at the developments that has taken place from the beginning of that protest to how it climaxed and how it is beginning to calm down and all of that, can we say that Nigeria is now truly ready, or Nigerians are truly ready to be the giant of Africa?
Yes, I agree with you that what we have seen played out in the past few weeks is a pointer to the fact that Nigerian youths are ready to take their destiny into their hand.
Okay.
Not minding what sacrifice they have to make in the process. What we have seen, for the first time in the history of this country, Are we saying that? And of course, beyond what we have seen is the fact that people could be so organized. People could be so committed. People could be so dedicated to a cause of a social change that is not even self-centered. You know, that's the fact that they are not, somebody is not saying it's just for me. They are saying, including the police that is even brutalizing us, we want their life to be better so that they can allow us to live in peace. I think that is commendable. And of course, from what I've been seeing from, you know, a couple of my friends, you know, even beyond Nigerians, I have seen some responses that I felt also confirmed the fact that if Nigeria arise, then these other countries that depend on Nigeria will arise. As of today, Nigeria played the big brother role in Africa. Economy, you know, security. Despite our own security challenges, we are still helping some of these other countries to also solve their security problem. Now imagine if Nigeria is at peace, then we could actually transmit this peace to other smaller countries. Now imagine if Nigeria have the economic advantage. Now imagine, you know, a lot of things can happen. We have a lot of these people coming into Nigeria, you know, despite our unemployment, some of them are still working it. So I think for me, the youth are doing what they should do, but I think we should only do it with caution, so that we don't throw the caution to the wind. While we're doing this, we should have our focus in view. This is what we want to achieve. This is why we are doing this, and that will constantly be Northern Star that guide whatever we do.
You know, let's go away from that for now. We'll come back to it about how we need to tread with caution, because we're going to talk about what's next, what we need to do next to consolidate on the gains that the EndSARS protest brought for Nigeria. Well, you mentioned something I find very interesting, and that is that one of the demands of the protest was for a reform of the Nigerian police force and the well-being of Nigerian police. And it brings me to one popular narrative that sold as the protests dragged on, and that was the fact that many of these policemen do the things they do even because of their own welfare, because they're not well taken care of, their mental health. And even though I do not agree that, because virtually every sector in Nigeria is affected by poor, you know, service conditions, I do not agree that it should be a reason for them to start brutalizing and killing Nigerians wantonly. But at the same time, I also know that you do a lot of PTSD programs, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder programs for men of the Nigerian police and men of the Nigerian army. What would you say, what has been your experience in that aspect, and how do you think it impacts on the current conversation that we are having? Okay,
I think let's take it from welfare. Then we end it with PTSD. Anywhere in the world, an hungry man is an angry man.
True.
That is settled.
Yeah.
Now, as in the case of the security forces, if their welfare is not taken care of, we know they are not paid to become so rich that they will lose agility and morale. But when their welfare is not taken care of, now that can be a bedrock for conflict. That can be a bedrock for misbehavior. As what we have seen in the past few weeks, which has been very, very revealing, is the fact that these guys are living on a very meager, unreasonable salaries. Not just salaries, their welfare package. From my experience, their welfare package is not to write home about. Now, if this is what we have seen and what obtains on the ground, I can tell you that it is an aberration for you to employ at least a man for such a risky, high-level job. The smallest officer of the Nigerian Army, Nigerian Police, they are doing high-level job, no matter how small you see them. Somebody who is in charge of lives and property is not a small job. Now you are paying them meager salary and you are giving AK-47 to them. What you have simply do is to say, I have commissioned you to be an armed robber or an hired assassin or anything. So the Nigerian government or the Nigerian structure has put them in a precarious condition. And of course, we are seeing it playing out. They want to pay the same school fees that anybody is paying. They want to eat at the 3-square meal. They want to. So it is a whole lot of pressure on them. Then this comes back to the people. And of course, that is why we are saying what we are saying today. Not to talk of the fact that sometimes we can also see, you know, there can be bad eggs. We know. There can be good eggs, there can be bad eggs. But of course, even the good egg will be influenced. So now, taking, you know, away from that, some of these guys also find solace in sometimes in alcohol. You know, when you can't meet some demands of prayer, then sometimes, you know, you can resort to, you know, some of these things as a way of, you know, denying yourself. Then in the process, what that does is that it takes emotional intelligence away from you. You are being influenced. Now, adding the prayer of the work to, you know, the home demands, then that's a whole lot of prayer. Huge prayer on this.
Despicable living conditions.
Despicable living conditions, even those living in the barracks. Most of the police barracks across the country is dilapidated.
Tell me about
they are
it.
nothing to write
Because I know that you grew up in the barracks at a point in time.
I tell you, okay, the state of the barracks in Nigeria, I think government is supposed to have declared a state of emergency on all the police barracks in Nigeria. I think Nigerian Army barracks is still fair. The Nigerian police is nothing, absolutely nothing to write home about. It's a place that we should not even make prison walls. I tell you. I was in one of the barracks, which I will not mention recently, and I tell you that they were queuing to get water. Some of the roofs are blown off by wind. And so, how could you imagine people living in this condition to be right-minded? It's not possible. So, all this, coupled with the fact that they are exposed to all forms of externalities, make them predisposed to PTSD. They are seeing, you know, a lot of hard situations, violent situations every now and then. So, and as a way of life, they want to also take solace in some of these substances to cover up. So, and all this can also play out when they relate with the populace. This is very, very important. And of course, we know that as of today, we don't have the health sector that takes care take care of that. So these guys are, for me, they are much of a victim than a corpse. They are much of a victim. For me.
Let me hold you there, and
right.
you know, as we discuss, as well, I want to own in on that. Is it a justification for now, you know, meting out the anger on innocent citizens?
Okay, that will not be enough reasons to do that, because of course, if your job cannot feed you, that your salary is not enough, that the welfare package is not enough, it's also not an enough grant to met this anger on the populace. I think the right thing to have for anybody to do at such scenario is to either resign from the police and do the alternative.
But I hear that people even pay to be, you know.
Yes, of course, we are Nigerians. You know, most time when people want to be enlisted into some of these forces, they don't really know what happened at the back end. Most of the time, they are because of there's no job in Nigeria. Most time because the uniform, you know, the pride that come with the uniform. You know, all of these get the young people to pick interest and get enlisted. And of course, you know, nobody planned that eventually that's how it's going to turn. But you know, by the time they start having family, a lot of things.
And then we also have the fact that there's unemployment, and we have some people who really do not want to be there, who are there because there is no choice.
Of course.
Now, away from all that, let's come to the significance of this event for peace in Nigeria, peace and conflict. Because for a couple of years now, it's been from one conflict to another. We had the militants, the Niger Delta militants. We had Boko Haram. Now we have EndSARS, even though they are not terrorist groups. As soon as the EndSARS protest was nipped in the bud, we begin to see a spate of violence. You know, it's almost unbelievable. Almost as though the entire Nigeria came together and decided to coordinate and, you know, start causing havoc in different states. Looting here and there, killings here and there, burnings, especially in Lagos, which is the economic center of Nigeria at this point. Would you say, how would you say this is important, or what would you say is the significance for peace and conflict in Nigeria at this time, and the far-reaching results of it?
My opinion on this has always been that if you inflate a balloon and you continue to inflate it, if nothing is done to reduce what you are putting in, the pressure you are putting in, then it will get to a point that the balloon will burst. Now, to guide the balloon from getting burst is to gradually deflate the balloon, at least to a level. So what we have seen play out over these years in Nigeria is that a lot of pressure, has been coming from different angle to the common man. So particularly the Nigerian youth, of course, you will agree with me that Nigeria, we are described as youth-budge country, where we have about 60% of the population youthful. So this is coming. The youth unemployment is there. The police brutality is there. Even those that are employed are underemployed. The infrastructural deficit is there. Health sector is not working. Education sector is not working. All of these have a compounding effect in brewing conflict. And so when nothing is done over the time, then a lot of things begin to happen, like what we have seen, which also led to this. So if you imagine, and even despite when the EndSARS process started, if we didn't have government failure, to be precise, I think it's government failure. If we didn't have government failure at one point, particularly had the highest hierarchy, if the president has spoken at a particular point, that will have helped to deflate this bubble in a way. And that will have also helped in controlling the extent to which, people are taking law into their hands today. So for me, my opinion, I think that the pressure has gotten to a level that an average Nigerian youth cannot take it again. Now, our government is not looking the right way. They are seeing protesters. They are not seeing people.
Somebody even called us so-called protesters.
Yeah, of course. So, and that tells you what is playing out in terms of generation. Yes, it is for some generation that is okay because they can't see reasons. Why should they be on the street despite what I'm doing? But they are forgetting that these youth have always been there. The past 20 years, their life has been like that. So it is not, for me, I think what we have seen that the youth have done, particularly the genuine protesters, I think they are, we should call them development leaders. They actually want better life for Nigerians, and not just for them, but for every other sector in Nigeria. And this will translate to a better life, not only for the youth, but for the entire Nigerian populace. And
going by what you're saying, you're saying that are we a step closer to peace, or are we a step backwards towards conflict?
Well, I think because, of course, conflict is also a process to peace. I think we're a step towards a peace. Yeah.
Let's now come back to government's response to the EndSARS protests so far. Government have come out to say, we did this for you, we did that for you, we said we were going to do this, and you guys were still on the streets, you were saying you're demanding an end to police brutality. But Nigerians, young Nigerians are saying, these things you said you did, or you say you want to do, are some of the things that you have promised that you're going to do over and over again. You just say you're going to do it, you just say you would open this panel, you will put together that panel, you would investigate this, and nothing ever comes out of this. Do you think, or would you say, judging by what we are seeing around, that the response this time is different and encouraging?
Well, like, pardon me, Yoruba people will say, what we have seen.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what it means is that we are just bringing out a bird from, the cage. So like, we have not really know what they are doing, to be honest with you. The leaders' approach is not 21st century compliant.
Okay.
21st century, 21st century way of doing things is different from their ways of doing things. And see, this takes me to the fact that we need young people in governance. We need young people in governance. I imagine how a 35-year-old Nigerian who governed a state will react to a protest in that state. It is definitely going to be different from how somebody who is 60, 70 years old would react. So, of course, from what we have seen from the leadership down to what we have seen on the ground is to show that there is a very huge lacuna between the government, between the leaders and the people. The people are the ones bearing the brunt of what's happening. The elites, the political class, they are enjoying. So they can't see reasons why people should be on the streets. Their children are employed.
Some of them are not even Nigeria.
Some of them are not even Nigeria. They don't even, with common code, they fly abroad. You know, so all of this, when you put it together, they can't.
Let's not focus on government for now.
Yeah.
One of the high points of this protest for me was Tuesday night, when the alleged Lekki shooting happened.
Okay.
Even though there are now a lot of controversies surrounding that shooting, one thing we cannot deny is that the next morning, the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, came out to say that forces beyond his control ordered the shooting, indicating that a shooting actually happened. How it happened, why it happened, and you know what led us to that point. I would not like us to deliberate too much on it, but was that necessary? Was it? Isn't there a better way the government could have handled? I know that a lot of people who have had protest experience say that government usually resort to brutality in a case where they feel the authority is threatened and they don't know what to do. Was it necessary to, you know, shoot at peaceful protesters? Okay,
thank you, Zainab, for this. The other time I mentioned that the old approach and the new approach, they are two totally different. Now, the old approach in Nigeria that we have seen is to use force and violence to quell protests. We saw that we have seen that over and over again. Even with student protests, we have seen that. But they have failed. The leadership have failed to realize that the way of doing things in the 21st century is totally different. This generation is different from what we used to have. You know,
and we are not even in the military era.
And of course, we are not in the military era. So people are becoming very much aware of their rights and privileges. So people know that they have a right to protest. People know that if the protest is peaceful, their government or their leaders are duty bound to protect them. Because of course, what they are agitating for is not out of this world. Better life for Nigerians, I don't think is out of this world. So, but the leaders or the government using different approach that would rather add petrol to the fire is of course something that we should all condemn. Whatever they like, they can say. Whatever the leaders like, they can say. But the truth of the matter is, we know that there was a shooting at Lekki toll gate. We know people were wounded. We know lives were lost. Yes. And I tell you, only if we have had one governor's son in that protest who died or who is badly injured, then the story will have been a different thing. But of course, common man in Nigeria, whoever remains common. So for me, I think leaders need to also look at their approach and see whether the approach can suit the present generation. And that is why it's very, very important that the Nigerian youth should arise and take the place of leadership.
Very briefly, at some point, hoodlums took over the protests and began to instigate violence, began to cause trouble here and there. And it reminds me of, you know, the fact that you work with orphans of the Nigerian police force, of the Nigerian army, and even widows. And some of those people, like, we won't have time to share your experience here, of how, if they're not well taken care of, can turn out to be thugs, can turn out to instigate violence in society. How would you say that it's important that we pay attention to the issues of how the offsprings of people in the force are taken care of as it relates to what we are currently discussing?
Okay. Governor Yerima of Borno State, in 2017, you know, made a statement very expressly that if the war orphans are not taken care of, that it might get to a time that they will chase them out of the state. And I'm banking on that to say that war orphans, war widows, most time, they have this pent-up feeling of being cheated, of being used, and so of being neglected and socially excluded. And of course, we can see, and so it's as if they are not existing. And so the truth of the matter remains that if these people grow up with this anger, just as all the prayer in Nigeria has accumulated, just like just like the bubble I mentioned earlier, the same thing happened. And so it could be a bedrock for a future conflict.
And we'd all be in trouble.
And we'll be
now, as we come to an end on this month's edition of Development Issues, I would like you to tell me what you feel, as an expert in this field, what you feel is the next step for Nigerian youths and the entire country.
Okay. First and foremost, I want to say that Nigerian youth, they won. Nigerian youth won.
Okay.
Give or take, Nigerian youth won. But much more, I think that we should come to a point where our energy leave our arms, our legs, and come to our brain. And what am I saying? We should get to a drawing board. We should get to, a table where we talk and re-strategize. Not strategizing this time for violence or for maybe taking over the street, but also for policies, for advocacy. We should take it beyond being on the street. We should take it to further engaging our leaders, engaging government, and we can start that with the tiniest of them. And of course, one area that I think the Nigerian youth we have also laid low before now is the fact that after election, we don't engage our leaders. Yes, leadership, citizenship participation has always been very, very low in Nigeria. And I think now Nigerian youth
there's a new awareness,
there is
and
a new
that is going
awareness.
to change.
And of course, I believe we are a step towards attaining peaceful Nigeria.
Wow, it's been quite a delight speaking with you on this month's edition of Development Issues, Mr. Adeeko.
It's my pleasure saying that.
All right then, and with that, we've come to the end of this month's edition of Development Issues. As you go about your daily activities and whatever it is that you're doing at this point in time, I hope and I strongly believe that the lives we have lost in this protest would encourage and energize you to keep demanding for good governance. See you next month. My name is Zainab Sanni.